There's a moment that arrives quietly, almost like a whisper in the middle of your day, when you realize you're no longer choosing things because you love them. You're choosing them because everyone else is. The coffee shop you drive past, your favorite place to visit. The clothes you buy that don't feel like you. The opinion you share that doesn't sound like your voice. And somewhere in all of that, a question forms that you're afraid to answer. When did I stop being myself? You've probably felt it, that pull, that urgent need to keep up, to know what's trending, to participate before it's too late, to post the right thing, wear the right thing, say the right thing. And every time you do, there's a brief moment of relief. You're part of it. You're relevant. But the relief fades faster than it arrives, and you're left wondering why nothing feels like enough anymore.
Trend chasers aren't shallow. They're not empty or vain or desperate. They're just trying to find something most people take for granted, a place to belong in a world that moves too fast to let you catch your breath. There's something hypnotic about trends. They don't just appear. They arrive with energy, with momentum, with the silent promise that if you're part of this, you matter. And in a world where mattering feels harder every day, that promise is everything. Intelligence has nothing to do with it. You can be brilliant and still find yourself scrolling at midnight, panicking because you missed something everyone's already talking about. Because trend chasing isn't about being smart or dumb. It's about identity. It's about the deep, primal human need to be seen, to be recognized, to not disappear. Psychologists call it social proof. The idea that if everyone else is doing something, it must be right. It must be valuable. It must be worth your time. And in small doses, that instinct makes sense. But when it becomes the lens through which you make every single decision, something shifts inside you.
You stop asking, "Do I want this?" and start asking, "Will this make me relevant?" And that question, quiet as it is, changes everything. The psychology behind trend chasing is more layered than people realize. On the surface, it looks like vanity, like people desperate for likes, for followers, for validation that can be measured in numbers. But dig deeper, and you find something far more human. Fear. The fear of being forgotten. The fear of being ordinary in a world that celebrates the extraordinary. The fear that if you're not constantly evolving, adapting, keeping up, you'll be left behind. Social media amplified this fear to a degree no generation before has experienced. You don't just see trends anymore. You see everyone participating in them in real time. You see the comments, the engagement, the sense of community forming around something you're not part of. And that exclusion, even if it's imagined, feels like rejection. There's a term in psychology called FOMO, fear of missing out, but it doesn't quite capture the weight of what's really happening. It's not just about missing an event or an experience. It's about missing proof that you're still part of the conversation, that you still matter, that your existence is still being noticed. Because in a digital world, invisibility feels like death. Trend chasers often have something in common, a fragile sense of self. Not because they're weak, but because they've spent so long adapting to what others expect that they've lost touch with what they actually feel. Their identity becomes a collage of other people's preferences. Their taste, a reflection of what's been validated by the masses. And here's the cruel irony. The more they chase trends, the less authentic they become. And the less authentic they become, the more they need external validation to feel real. It's a cycle that tightens with every scroll, every purchase, every desperate attempt to stay relevant. Psychologists call this external locus of control. It means your sense of worth is determined by forces outside yourself. You don't feel good because you're aligned with your values. You feel good because others approve. And when that approval is tied to something as fleeting as a trend, your emotional stability becomes just as temporary. One week you're riding high because you're part of the latest movement. The next week, it's over, and you're scrambling again, looking for the next thing to anchor yourself to. It's exhausting. And deep down, trend chasers know it, but they don't know how to stop. There's a shift that happens in the brain when you chase trends. Dopamine, the feel-good chemical, spikes when you acquire something new, when you're part of something popular, when you feel like you belong. But that spike is short-lived. The brain adapts quickly. What felt exciting yesterday feels ordinary today. So you need more. A new trend, a new aesthetic, a new identity. It's the same mechanism that drives addiction. Not because trends are inherently addictive, but because the reward system in your brain starts to depend on that external validation. You stop generating fulfillment from within and start needing it from without. And the more you need it, the less control you have. Trend chasers often describe feeling empty. Like no matter how much they acquire, how much they participate, how much they perform, there's still a void. And that void isn't asking for more trends. It's asking for something real, something steady, something that doesn't change the moment everyone's attention shifts. But real feels risky. Real means standing still while the world moves. Real means choosing something not because it's popular, but because it resonates. And for someone whose identity has been built on what's trending, that feels like stepping into the dark. I remember the first time I realized I was chasing something I didn't actually want. It was a small moment. I'd bought something because I saw it everywhere, in my feed, in videos, in the lives of people I admired. And when it arrived, I felt nothing. No excitement, no satisfaction, just the quiet awareness that I'd been sold a feeling, not a product. And in that moment, I understood. I wasn't buying things. I was buying the illusion of belonging. The illusion that if I looked like them, acted like them, consumed like them, I'd feel what they seemed to feel. But you can't buy your way into authenticity. You can only perform it. And performance, no matter how convincing, always ends when the audience leaves. If you're someone who's chased trends, you know this feeling. That moment when the thing you wanted so desperately becomes irrelevant. And you're left holding something that no longer means anything, realizing you spent time, money, energy on a moment that's already passed. It's not regret exactly, it's more like grief. Grief for the version of yourself that got lost in the noise. Grief for the time you spent trying to be someone else's idea of interesting instead of discovering what actually interests you. But here's the thing about trend chasing. It's not inherently bad. Trends exist because they tap into something collective, something human. The problem isn't participating in trends. The problem is when trends become the only way you know how to exist. There's a difference between enjoying something because it's popular and needing something to be popular before you can enjoy it. The first is flexibility. The second is dependency. And dependency in any form costs you freedom. Psychologists talk about intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation comes from within. You do something because it fulfills you, because it aligns with your values, because it feels true. Extrinsic motivation comes from outside. You do something because others will approve, because it will look good, because it will keep you relevant. Trend chasers live almost entirely in extrinsic motivation. And the exhausting part is that extrinsic motivation is never enough. It's like trying to fill a cup with a hole in the bottom. No matter how much you pour in, it's never full. Because the validation you're seeking isn't designed to last. It's designed to keep you chasing. The shift happens when you start asking a different question. Not what's everyone else doing, but what do I actually want? And that question, simple as it sounds, is terrifying for someone who spent years letting trends decide for them. Because answering it requires stillness. It requires sitting with yourself long enough to hear your own voice beneath all the noise. And for many people, that voice has been silent for so long, they're not sure it's even there anymore. But it is. It's always been there, waiting, quiet, patient. The hard part is learning to trust it again, learning that your preferences don't need to be validated by thousands of people to be real, that your style, your taste, your choices are allowed to exist even if no one else is doing it. And being yourself, even when it's not trending, is not only enough, it's the whole point. Trend chasers often fear that if they stop following what's popular, they'll become boring, invisible, irrelevant. But the opposite is true. The most interesting people aren't the ones who mirror what everyone else is doing. They're the ones who figured out who they are beneath the performance. Because authenticity, real authenticity, doesn't trend. It doesn't need to. It exists whether it's popular or not. And that permanence, that steadiness, is what people are actually searching for when they chase trends. They're not looking for the next thing. They're looking for something that lasts. And the only thing that lasts is you. Not the version of you that's performing, but the version that exists when no one's watching. The version that knows what it likes, what it values, what it stands for, regardless of what's popular. So when you understand this, trend chasing begins to feel less like freedom and more like a cage. A beautiful, constantly changing cage, but a cage nonetheless. Because every time you mold yourself to fit what's trending, you're telling yourself that who you are isn't enough. That you need to be updated, refreshed, rebranded to matter. But you don't. You were enough before the trend, you'll be enough after it fades. And the sooner you realize that, the sooner you stop chasing and start living. Not for the feed, not for the approval, not for the fleeting sense of relevance that evaporates the moment something new arrives, but for yourself, in a way that's steady, real, yours. And maybe that's the secret no one tells you, that the people who seem most effortlessly themselves aren't immune to trends. They just stopped needing them to define who they are. They participate when it resonates, they skip when it doesn't. And they never, ever apologize for choosing stillness over noise. Because they've learned